Who is piloting the UAPs or UFOs constantly seen in our skies? Where are they from? Why are they here? How long have they been here? What is their mission on planet Earth? Do they come in peace or do they have more sinister motives? Join your host, Mad Mark, as he uncovers the answers to these questions and many more of the mysteries that have puzzled mankind for centuries on Who Are the Aliens? The history of the Anunnaki on planet Earth. And now, here's Mad Mark. Today's episode: are the current wars in the Middle East just a continuation of the original Anunnaki conflicts, the wars of the gods, and a plea for peace? Hello everyone, and welcome to episode 15 of Who Are the Aliens? The history of the Anunnaki on planet Earth. I'm Mad Mark, and today we continue our studies of Zecharia Sitchin's third book, The Wars of Gods and Men, published by Avon Books in 1985. Okay, in our last couple of episodes, we took a deep dive into the two pyramid wars, and at the end of episode 14, we were discussing the decisions reached at the peace conference and negotiations held at the conclusion of the Second Pyramid War. Part of these negotiations resulted in Shamash being put in charge of the new Mission Control Center in Jerusalem, which was no big surprise since he had been in charge of the old one in Nippur. But there are a lot of reasons why this is relevant even up to modern times. Not because of Shamash, but because of Jerusalem itself. This was the beginning of Jerusalem becoming a holy land. Why? Because it was now an important site to the gods. And there were some events that we will cover in the future that added to all of this. But I find it relevant to address it here for two important reasons. First, because Mr. Sitchin is currently covering it at this point in the book we are discussing. And also because Israel is big news right now. I need to clarify that I write and record these episodes 4 to 6 weeks before they actually air. So I have no idea what is going on in the war between Israel and Iran by the time you will actually be listening to this. But last night, in my time, Iran retaliated against Israel with a massive missile strike, and everyone is talking about it. And countries are taking sides, so let's talk about it. I've mentioned many times on this program that I believe the Anunnaki are still making all the decisions on planet Earth even today. And while I doubt that any of the original Anunnaki, i.e. Anu, Enlil, Enki, etc., are still involved because they would be quite elderly if they even still are alive, I'm certain that their descendants are now making the decisions. So, basically, this war involves the Mesopotamian region, the lands governed by Enlil, against Israel, the land governed by Marduk, Amun-Ra. And it's more of the same BS that has been going on, the same damn power struggles of these so-called gods since they first landed on this planet. Troops are gathered, bombs and missiles are launched, and who suffers for it? Not the Anunnaki. Remember, I talked about it in episode 14. When an Anunnaki gets injured in one of these battles, everything comes to a screeching halt. They are not allowed to die in their wars. Nope, it's we humans who suffer. Innocent men, women, and children who many times lose everything in these power struggles of the gods. And why do I believe that the Anunnaki are still making all the decisions regarding our planet? Let's look at what we know to be true. When Ziusudra/Noah was taken to a place beyond ordinary lands, the land of the crossing, a sacred zone where the divine met the earthly, he was given knowledge, longevity, and secrets. He would not be king, but his descendants would be. From his bloodline, the gods would restart civilization, but this time there would be no open rule. No more Anunnaki walking freely among men. Instead, kingship was lowered from heaven. Cities were founded. Kish, Uruk, Eridu, Nippur, each ruled by humans that were hand-picked by the gods. These kings were not elected. They were not rebels or conquerors. They were descendants of the divine. Their authority came not from swords, but from bloodlines and rituals. Temples rose where control stations once stood. Priests replaced commanders. Ritual replaced regulation. It looks like spirituality, but it was instead strategy. The Anunnaki had withdrawn into the shadows, but their systems, their symbols, their laws, their calendar, their control remained. They had shifted from visible to invisible gods to invisible rulers. And civilization, it didn't rise, it was reconstructed. From the ashes of catastrophe, the illusion of freedom began. Temples rose, kings ruled, but beneath every crown lay a question. What were we really? We spoke of gods. In earliest times, men worshipped the names like Enlil, Enki, Inanna, Marduk, but those names weren't myths. They were designers. They were engineers. And we were the product, not born of divine love, not shaped in spiritual ascension. We were engineered, fused from the raw biology of Earth and the essence of Nibiru. We were hybrids. Our ancestors didn't evolve naturally in forests and caves. They were created in chambers, inside the house of life, known as the Eden facility, by beings with the power to edit DNA before our species even knew fire. These Sumerian tablets tell us this. Clearly, they name names, they give dates, they describe the labs, the leaders, the mission, and yet the world doesn't know. Why? Because those tablets lie hidden in museum basements, in restricted archives. Some have been excavated, yet never translated. Others translated, but never published. Too controversial, they say. Too disruptive. Because if this truth were fully known, that we were created as a slave species by extraterrestrial gods, it would shatter everything. Religion, history, identity, control. The very systems built to rule us would unravel. So instead, they gave us a sanitized myth, a God of light and love who made us in his image. But the tablets say otherwise. We are not made in the image of one God. We were modeled by many, the Anunnaki. And we were not made to love, we were made to serve. But then comes the real question. Did they give us something that they did not intend? A spark, a defiant strand of curiosity that made us look back at the stars and wonder why. Were we made just to mind and obey, or were we meant to awaken? Could the Anunnaki reset the system again? Well, one thing is certain. We are not random. We are not natural. We may be the legacy of these gods, but the story isn't finished. And the real war, the one between control and freedom, is still being fought inside each and every one of us. So, from here on, I refuse to get emotionally involved in these wars. They are not our wars. They are not human wars. These Anunnaki almost devastated their own planet, Nibiru, before the first one of them ever landed here on Earth. Then, once Enki had everything up and running, and more Anunnaki began to come down here to Earth, almost immediately they started fighting with one another. And not long after that, they started enlisting us humans to fight and die in their petty battles. Well, I, for one, am done with it. If we all pull together, we can put an end to this. We can wake up and take back our planet and live with our brothers and sisters in peace the way we were always intended to do. Always remember, they are the ones who made us all look different from each other. They were the ones who confused our languages, and they were the ones who created all of these damn religions. All of the things that helped to tear us apart, they created. People are beginning to see through the cracks in these religions, and it is far past the time when we need to stop participating in their senseless wars. You know, when I was a kid growing up in the backdrop of the Vietnam War, one of my favorite bands was the Monkees. There they are. You know, the final track on their 1968 album, The Birds, the Bees, and the Monkeys, was a song entitled Zor and Zam. It was a song about war, and it was relevant at that time. But I actually think it's even more relevant now that we know the truth behind who is running things on our planet and why we are constantly at war. So allow me to take a moment and read to you the lyrics of this song, especially the last few lines. It's the perfect solution to this problem. Here we go. The king of Zor, he called for a war, and the king of Zam, he answered. They fashioned their weapons, one upon one, ton upon ton. They called for war at the rise of the sun. Out went the call to one and to all, that echoed and rolled like the thunder. Trumpets and drums, roar upon roar, more upon more, rolling the call of come now to war. Throughout the night they fashioned their might, with right on the side of the mighty. They puzzled their minds, plan upon plan, man upon man, and at the dying of dawn the great war began. They met on the battlefield, banner in hand. They looked out across the vacant land, and they counted the missing, one upon one, none upon none. The war was over before it had begun. Two little kings playing a game. They gave a war, and nobody came. So, there you have it, the solution to this problem. Your leader calls for a war? Okay. Then let the leaders fight the damn wars. Don't sign up, don't show up, and above all, don't give up. Stand your ground. We, the people of planet Earth, are absolutely sick and tired of fighting your wars. The pain, the suffering, the death and destruction, the broken families, the orphan children, it all ends now. You want to keep fighting each other? Terrific. Go back to Nibiru and blow the living shit out of each other. That is your right. We don't give a damn. But if this is how you want to behave, pick up your shit and get the hell off of our planet. We don't want your religions, and we are not going to get down on our knees to you any longer. We don't want your conflicts. And we don't want your damn wars. We, the people of planet Earth, declare our independence from you. It all ends now. We want peace with our other earthly brothers and sisters. Go and take your nonsense with you. We are done. We can do this, my friends. From now on, say no to hate, say no to decisiveness, say no to participation in conflicts, and most of all, say no to war. Now, let's get back to our studies of these Anunnaki gods, because it's important that we know the beings that we are dealing with. A hymn to Eridu is an ancient text which describes a gathering of these great gods when reconstruction of Mesopotamia was taking place sometime after the Great Flood. The occasion was a visit to Earth by Anu, which happened every 3,600 Earth years whenever Nibiru came close enough to allow for travel between these two planets. And after the usual greetings and formalities were concluded, the deliberations quickly turned to Enlil's complaint that Enki was withholding the divine formulas from the other gods. Hey gang, Mad Mark here to let you know that I now have new t-shirts available for my show, Who Are the Aliens? The History of the Anunnaki on Planet Earth. You can find these cool new shirts by searching Who Are the Aliens shirts on Amazon, or by clicking the link on my website at madmarktv.com. They are available in a variety of sizes and colors with delivery through Amazon, a name you know and trust. That's the all-new Who Are the Aliens t-shirts, just like the one you see me wearing right here. Get yours now. These formulas contained the knowledge of more than 100 aspects of civilization, which Enki had confined to his city of Eridu and its people only. Anu then made the decree that these formulas should be shared with all the other gods so that they too could reestablish their urban centers. and thus civilization was granted to the whole of Sumer. And this decision led to the creation of new cities beside the olden ones. First and most important among them was Kish. It was put under the control of Enlil's foremost son, Ninurta, and it became Sumer's first administrative capital. The new urban center of Ur, which became Sumer's new economic heart, was put under the jurisdiction of Nanar-Sin, Enlil's firstborn son. And that was all very important. But it was at this historic conclave that an even more important decision was made, the decision to give mankind kingship as an intermediary between themselves and the humans. The Anunnaki believed that they had become too lofty for humans, whatever the hell that means, and these first kings appointed by Enlil were known as mighty men. In the biblical version of this tale, we read that the first three capitals where kingship was established were Kish, Babylon, and Erech. However, the Sumerian texts tell us that kingship moved from Kish to Erech, then to Ur, omitting any mention of Babylon, which may have something to do with the Tower of Babel incident. Think you know everything about the Tower of Babel? I have to admit that I did too, especially since I have covered this event in great detail on earlier episodes of this show. But could there be even more to this story? Could it be that our old friend Marduk was somehow involved? The time period was during the rebuilding of Mesopotamia after the Great Flood. And remember, Marduk was the god of Babylon at that time and for many years afterwards. When all of Enlil's children were given their own cities to rule over at the Anunnaki meetings, but Marduk was left out. Could it actually have been Marduk who instigated the Tower of Babel incident? Could he have been the one who uttered those words, "Come, let us build a city and a tower whose head shall reach the heavens"? In 1876, George Smith discovered another version of this story in the library at Ashurbanipal in Nineveh, a version that suggests that the Tower of Babel incident was one brought about by the gods themselves, and, as usual, mankind was only a pawn in this struggle. According to the version discovered by Smith, Marduk's thoughts were evil against Enlil. To achieve his evil purpose, he corrupted the people of Babylon to sin and begin construction of that tower. When the news of this reached Enlil, he contacted Anu to intervene. He also contacted Marduk's mother, Damkina, and her response was that, "With my son, I will rise." And she then suggested that Marduk's numerical ranking, his very status among the Anunnaki, was at issue. I've discussed on this program before just how important each god's numerical ranking was to them. So, after seeing that Marduk and his people were attempting to build this tower, which, as I've proven on past episodes, was indeed a spaceport, not a tower to reach the heavens, Enlil attempts to persuade the Babylonians and Marduk to cease their efforts immediately. They do not, and thusly Enlil destroys it. Same ending as the more popular versions of the story, although this one makes even more sense than the Sumerian version, and, as I've already proven in the past, the biblical version makes no sense whatsoever. Why does this make sense? Because the Anunnaki already had a spaceport, one that all of them were allowed to make use of. Why did Marduk need one for his use only? That did not sit well with Enlil, and so it was destroyed. But it wouldn't be the last time that Marduk attempted to build his own spaceport, and the next time he tried, it would lead to the devastation that signaled the end of the visible Anunnaki presence here on planet Earth. But again, this story is nothing more than the first attempt by Marduk to prevent the transfer of kingship from the Enlilites, particularly the cities ruled by Enlil's son Nanar-Sin, and to seize kingship for his own city of Babylon. And this was the first attempt in a chain of events that led to the Anunnaki presence here on Earth becoming what it still is to this day, where they are not seen nor heard, where they rule not visibly, not out in the open, but in secret from the shadows. After failing in his attempt to seize kingship in Babylon, Marduk returned to Egypt Kemet. He promptly established himself in Heliopolis, but as he set forth to re-establish his supremacy there, he soon discovered that things had changed. Though his half-brother Thoth was still in charge as the god of Egypt Kemet, he was not much of a fighter, interested more in knowledge and science, like his father Enki, and Nergal and Jabil were not in positions of great power either. However, Dumuzi was every bit Marduk's rival. Being the younger son of Enki, with his domain bordering Upper Egypt, he was quickly rising as the successor to the throne. And being that his wife was Inanna Ishtar, it was just one more reason for Marduk to be concerned. Dumuzi, son of Enki, Inanna Ishtar, the warrior princess and granddaughter of Enlil. They were a formidable pair, and they wanted control of Egypt as badly as Marduk did. But Dumuzi and Inanna Ishtar soon made a grave mistake, and it was a mistake that Marduk cunningly positioned himself to exploit and take full advantage of. This story begins with the fact that as happy as Dumuzi and Inanna Ishtar's relationship was, one thing was missing. They were unable to produce a male heir. And, as we've discussed many times on this program, producing a male heir was of great importance to any Anunnaki who had their eyes on a throne or a position of power. And, since ruling Egypt was the top priority of both Dumuzi and Inanna Ishtar, they devised an ill-conceived plan to produce that male heir. A plan that unfortunately led to their downfall. With Inanna Ishtar's consent, Dumuzi, just like his father before him, set out to produce this much-needed male heir by having sex with his sister Jeshtinana. And, to make a long story short, when she refused, he raped her. As I've discussed in the past, rape is a very serious sexual transgression to the Anunnaki, just as it is with us humans, and Dumuzi was soon arrested by the deputies of Kher, near where the Aswan Dam is located today. He managed to break free from his captors and proceeded to swim across the mighty river, where his mother and Inanna Ishtar were waiting on the other side. But the swirling waters proved to be too much for this young god, and he drowned in his attempt. Now, you may be asking yourself, who exactly were these deputies of Kher? They were officials acting on the order of the master of Kher. And who was that? You guessed it, Marduk, once again. He had been against Dumuzi's marriage to the Enlilite Inanna Ishtar from the very beginning. But had Marduk planned for Dumuzi to die? Probably not. But as his path to the throne was now within his reach, it was just an extra bonus. But, accidental or not, Inanna was livid at the loss of her husband, and she wanted revenge. And that is where I will leave you for this episode. Nothing like a good cliffhanger, eh? You have quite a bit to digest there, and we have so much more to cover and learn. I'm Mad Mark, and I sincerely hope that you've enjoyed this episode. If so, please like, share, and comment. It helps so much. And also, tell your friends and help spread the word about this show. Also, if you have any questions regarding the content discussed on this program, just message me through madmarktv.com or on any of my social media platforms. I also wish to remind everyone that listening to this podcast is no excuse to not read the book that we are discussing here, The Wars of Gods and Men by Zecharia Sitchin. It is an amazing work, and I am leaving out much information in order to keep the podcast flowing properly. So do yourselves a favor and read that book. Who Are the Aliens? The History of the Anunnaki on Planet Earth is written and produced by me, Mad Mark. All media used in this episode is done so under the protection of fair use for the purpose of teaching. Today we have taken another step in our ongoing journey to discover the truth. I promise you that things will get more and more interesting the further we delve into this topic of who are the aliens, the history of the Anunnaki on planet Earth. Bye for now. This has been Who Are the Aliens? The History of the Anunnaki on Planet Earth with your host, Mad Mark. Join us again on our next program when Mad Mark will once again uncover the answers to more of the mysteries that puzzle mankind.